All right. Hi, everybody. My name is McKenna, and I will be doing my presentation on vitamin D. All right. So vitamin D. This is the introduction to vitamin D. It's any group of vitamins found in liver and fish oils essential for the absorption of calcium and the prevention of rickets in children and osteomalacia in adults. So here we can see the RDA. In adult women, our RDA is 15 milligrams, and then micrograms, and then in adult men, the RDA is the same. So I thought that was kind of interesting. In my mind, I thought that the RDA would be different for adult women just because vitamin D helps with the absorption of calcium. Women tend to be lower in calcium. And the next slide shows the upper levels, and we can see that it increases as you get older until about age 4, and then it stays the same. So starting at age 4, you really shouldn't pass up the 4,000. And so the major functions, it assists in the absorption of calcium, it increases bone strength, it helps with the stronger immune system, and it increases muscle strength. We'll go further into that later on in the presentation. So vitamin D deficiencies and their symptoms. So the first one I want to talk about is osteomalacia. So the meaning of osteomalacia means soft bones. And it's poor calcification of newly synthesized bones. People with kidney or liver disease are at a higher risk, and then elderly people living in nursing homes are also at a higher risk. And I did a little bit of research on why elderly people living in nursing homes were at a higher risk. And I found that, one, as you get older, your bone density decreases. And two, people in elderly homes aren't getting out into the sun, and the sun is a great source for vitamin D. So if you look at this top picture up at the right, you can see a normal bone and the marrow in it, how it has some nice thick edges, but the one with osteomalacia is starting to thin. And it causes cracking, like you can see going across it, and it can cause some buckling. So the symptoms of these are weak bones and frequent broken bones. And then the next one, that this happens in children, and it's called rickets, and it causes the bones to weaken and bow under pressure. So like in that previous picture, this one's the same in that the sides are thinning, and the pressure, the weight, is causing it to buckle. So you can see this little guy's legs, they should be going straight down, but because of his weight, it's buckling out. And then some of the signs of rickets are enlarged heart, enlarged joints, and rib cage. So you can see on this guy that his rib cage is very big. He gets big on his side. They do have deformed pelvis and bowed legs. Some great food sources for vitamin D are fatty fish, so sardines, mackerel, herring, and salmon, cod liver oil, fortified milk, and some fortified breakfast cereals. So there really isn't, because not a lot of people eat sardines, mackerel, herring, and salmon and drink cod liver oil. We do get a lot of our vitamin D from milk and fortified breakfast cereals. And there is kind of controversy over drinking that fortified milk. But one of the major sources of vitamin D is the sun. So the more exposure we're outside, the better for us. One thing I found interesting, and kind of going back to rickets, as you can see in African countries, rickets is a big problem. And I kind of looked into why that was. It didn't really make sense to me. They're out in the sun a lot. But because they have that darker skin, it doesn't absorb the sun as well. And so they are at an increased risk. So they do need to find it in their diet more than they can rely on the sun. So toxicity, this occurs from excessive vitamin D supplementation, is what the article I was reading about. They said that a lot of times you're not going to get that much from the sun. And it actually can't happen from the sun because your body will actually stop absorbing it. But basically supplementing too much. So whether you're getting it from a pill or too much in your milk or in your cereals, things like that is when you're going to get above your UL and get to toxicity. So some of the symptoms of toxicity are elevated blood levels, elevated blood calcium levels, digestive distress, and so that included nausea, vomiting, upset stomach, fatigue, dizziness, and confusion, excessive thirst, frequent urination, bone loss, and kidney failure. And I found bone loss was interesting because vitamin D actually helps with the building of bone, but with toxicity, it can actually reverse that effect, and it ruins bones. So the next slide is nutrients, function, and metabolism. So when blood calcium levels are low, vitamin D promotes increased intestinal absorption of calcium and phosphorus from foods to maintain blood levels of these minerals. So looking over here at this diagram, you can see that there's vitamin D2 in food or supplements, and then the UV light from the sun converts it to vitamin D3, and then dietary vitamin D2 is absorbed with dietary fat in the intestine. And vitamin D from both dietary sources and synthesis in the skin is bound to carrier proteins in the bloodstream and transported to the liver. And then from there, vitamin D is converted into calcidiol. And then in the kidney, it's converted to calcitriol. So the most interesting thing I learned during this is that the sun is not our main source of vitamin D. It's not our best source. It's more like you get a better source of vitamin D through your foods. So really paying attention to supplementing your vitamin D, but staying under your UL, and then also watching like what foods we eat. So eating those fatty fish, and if you desire to drink cod liver oil, you can do that too. But getting your vitamin D from the sun is the most natural way for our body to get it. So highlight from the media is vitamin D, the sunshine vitamin, is what the article is titled. And it says vitamin D insufficiency affects almost 50% of the population worldwide. This is due to lifestyle. So it was kind of saying that because we spend more time inside, less time outdoors, we're not exposed to the sun as much. One thing I did find interesting is that air pollution really affects vitamin D, and that's not something I would have thought of, but it really does, because it clouds the sun and we get less exposure to the sun. And because of these reasons, they've come out and said that we need to supplement our vitamin D, because so many people, 50% of the population is deficient in vitamin D. And here are my sources.